Hello, hello, hello. I'm Josetta Yvonne, your book bae, coming on for a quick book chat today. I hope this video finds you well. So I just wrapped up the book, Andre Leon Talley, The Chiffon Trenches. I bought this book actually, I think during the pandemic, and I did not get around to reading it. I really wish I had. And I picked it up just recently because of all the talk about The Devil Wears Prada, which they have said it is loosely based on Vogue and Anna Wintour. And when I heard that, I remember I watched part one many years ago, and whenever it came out, which is been a long time ago, seems like it. But when they mentioned it was loosely based on that, and I remembered him being linked to Anna Wintour, it made me want to read his story more because I didn't remember or recall anyone with his likeness in the original movie that I saw years ago. And outside of that, he's a fashion icon. He's, like the first Black person that I remember that was everywhere on the red carpet with celebrities. I remember him on what was the Tower Banks American Top Model. He was just that guy. You would see him on the red carpets interviewing people. I remember him just being that person because I don't recall any other Black man or woman at that time being that close to that scene and having their finger to the pulse of fashion the way he did. And it seemed like at that time to me that he was being embraced as well. And of course, he's very interesting as well. He grew up in the South in North Carolina, Durham, and his parents did not raise him. His grandparents actually raised him. His grandmother and his great-grandmother raised him after his parents got divorced. And his grandmother really let him shine and be who he wanted to be. And so he got a scholarship to a school, I can't remember, it was up north, and he pursued a degree in French. He was going to be a French teacher. He got his master's in that, and then he got to meet some new friends from a different school that was nearby, and they showed him a whole different world. But he had always loved Vogue growing up. It was an escape to him from his small area where he didn't get to see that kind of stuff on an everyday basis. And so it really excited him and lit a fire in him, and he just loved it. And so to read his story was amazing. It is poetic how he writes. I see why he did so well in the industry. The love and care that he put into this book, he put into other people, how generous he was, it really showed. And you can really tell how and what his grandmother and great-grandmother put into him by what he put out, because it seemed like he was genuinely showing up with nothing but love and respect, and as if their voices were always in his head of how he should be carrying himself. And he realized as a tall Black man, even though he was successful, he had to still carry himself in a certain way to be treated and respected in a certain way. And so I don't want to give too many details away on the book, but it is an amazing, 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 or more. So definitely pick it out or pick it up. So other things that stood out to me is that people called him, I think he said Betty Crotrox, called him the King of Paris. I loved in here how Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever they call him. He called him the godfather of fashion. will.i.am said he was the Nelson Mandela of couture. He believed that fashion had to uplift the soul. Whoopi Goldberg called him the Black Rocket. I loved how his documentary is now on Netflix. It aligns with his book so much. And I could even hear his voice as I was reading the book. I loved here how he even talked about his different friends. I think Diane Verlin is the one who gave him his first chance, and she spoke highly of him and got him on in other places of fashion at magazines, so he could be a writer there. And I loved how she loved him, you know, how she spoke highly of him and how he even loved her back. I think she reminded him of his grandmother. And it was interesting because he was great friends with Karl Lagerfeld, who later worked for Chanel, and Tom Ford. I think he mentioned Valentino, Marc Jacobs. It was really interesting that him naming these people that we see, or I have normally seen as a brand, not a person, but he knew these actual people, and he was on the scene, on the front row, doing his thing, doing these interviews on the red carpet. Like, he was that guy. He had his finger on the pulse of fashion, and people generally, you know, seemed to love him. But with that also came hate. Some people were mean and tried to call him Queen Kong in Paris. But he shook it off. Some people misjudged him and tried to accuse him of doing so well because he was betting people in the industry, or what's his name, Yves Saint Laurent. Someone from his company tried to accuse him of certain things, and he rose above it. He did well. He did amazing for all those things to be coming at him from people that it hurt him. It hurt him. People that he thought was on his side, but it hurt him. So let me give you some of these things he said here in the book that I think stood out, that I liked. He said, homework can mean a lot of things, but do your homework in life. Style will get you up the steps into the revolving door. Substance and knowledge will allow you access to create new horizons. My great depth of knowledge is the #1 skill I possess and has carried me throughout my career to this day. Rivers deep, mountains high. All the people who matter in my life have approached me because of my knowledge. Throughout my career, designers liked spending time with me because I studied, and I studied, and I resolved to learn as much as I could. He said some of the best advice he got from his uncle, who said, just keep on getting up. Get up every day and just keep going. It was some of the best advice I've ever been given. I love how he quoted part of Toni Morrison's quote where he says, the ancestors as foundation. And that's what he stood on each and every day. Unfortunately, he did experience some abuse when he was younger. There was some SA from, it sounds like some older gentlemen in the neighborhood. No, I can't even call them gentlemen, older men. And so his romantic life never came to be. It was not anything he focused on. But I just can't imagine like how he soared already. But imagine if he had found someone to love, or that loved him unconditionally like his grandmother. And so then he has pictures in here of him on the scene. One with him dancing with Diana Ross at Studio 54. And he talked about how sweet of a person she was and how giving, and her offering to just take him shopping when they're out. Later on, he, after his grandmother's passing, he gained a lot of weight, and he contributed it to emotional eating due to, that's what he associated as love with her. I think we all know that soul food is a thing within our culture, and whenever he would eat really delicious foods and pies, that made him feel good because it made him feel close to home with his grandmother. And so after losing her, he kind of went down that path of overeating, and it was from his emotions of trying to soothe himself. He says here, love has not been in my life in any degree. I never learned how to maintain strong self-worth when it came to two people getting down, literally clinging to each other. Yet I have found love in little interludes of innocence or wonderful life-enhancing bonds and friendships that grew out of respect, affection, and admiration. I have had many emotional highs and definite lows when it comes to love and romance, and yet I am alone. Either way, guys, beautiful book. Check it out. Let me give you this one last piece that I like. I don't want to give you too much here. So good. He says here, racism is systemic everywhere, but no one in Paris talked about race. Racism was always underneath, sleeping below the epidermis of everything I did. It was mostly dormant, but would raise its head ever so often. I knew my very being was shocking to some people, that I was Black, sure, but also that I was so tall and thin, that I spoke French meticulously. I had a strong opinion, and I looked people in the eye. I didn't turn away. I may have been insecure, but I was never shy. My knowledge and my passion and love for fashion and literature and art and history gave me confidence. I was in Paris to edit and style pictures, and I intended to do so successfully. I was living my moment, my dream, achieved. Yes, well said, well said. So if you're in the mood to read about fashion, dive into this book. It is a beautiful book. I tabbed it down, and I think you'll love every moment of it. It is 278 pages. This is one of his great friends that passed away right here as well. Let me go back to her page. She was so sweet to him. I loved their dynamic and how he held her and stayed by her side when she got really sick. I think she had cancer. Her name was Lee Radziwill. Apparently she was, I guess, Jackie O's sister. But he spoke very highly of her and how he grieved her after she passed. Anyway, I loved here too, one more thing about how Naomi Campbell stepped in, and helped him with his documentary being first previewed in Africa. Uh, she flew him out there and back. And also, I loved how the celebrities gave him his flowers while he was here. He mentioned Rihanna, Mariah Carey, Beyonce, Naomi Campbell, and so many others that really, 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 really gave homage. And what a blessing. He is such a blessing. He's an icon. Pick the book up, guys. Pick it up. If you are watching Devil Loves Prada Part 2, then pick this up, because he should have been in there. There should have been some kind of likeness of him, especially with how tight him and Anna Wintour was, and him at her fittings and all the fittings. She would depend on him to yay or nay. Like, pick it up. Anyway, next book. So, More to Life by Rashonda Tate Billingsley. This is, I would say, just a fiction novel. It was really good, though. The main character was Asia, and she's married to this sports reporter, Charles. But the life she created for herself that she thought she wanted, she later realized that she was not living. And everything she did was for other people, and she really wasn't doing anything for herself. And as the story unfolds, her children get older, they grow up, they go off to college, and she thinks that's going to be the time, and that she will initially or eventually or at that very moment get to do what she's always loved and pour back into herself and have the support of her family, because she's always supported them. But unfortunately, they're not listening. They're taking and taking and taking and dismissing what she wants to do, because for so long she has not done it. She's put everybody else's needs and desires above hers. And so her family has become comfortable with her pouring into them and not into herself. And so that is where this book takes off. She goes on a journey, and it's a journey home to herself. And the story unfolds of her discussing it with her husband, and that's all you're gonna get from me. So yeah, pick up this book if you're on a journey, or you know, if you can relate to always being someone that's giving and pouring into others, but then no one else is really pouring into you or taking your dreams serious. Yeah, it was a very good read with a great ending. And yeah, let me see, I got a tab here. She got some great advice. Let me just give you this piece. She says here, your intuition always knows what's right for you. The only reason you're hesitating is that you're not accustomed to listening to your instinctual voice. Your emotions tell you everything you need to know about what's right and what's wrong for you. So in essence, how you feel is everything. Your emotions are always guiding you along your life's path. But be aware, that path might be different from the one you're currently on. I think that's what you're finding out. Just because you have traveled a path doesn't mean that you are meant to be on that path forever. That path is only useful to you as long as it retains its ability to support your growth. You can only hold on to something that you've outlived for so long before the universe or God will take it away from you. So yes, she asked her if she was happy, and it opened a can of worms. And the last but not least is called Dark Girls. I got this from a thrift store, but it was written by Bill Duke. He was I think he still is an actor. But he grew up seeing his sister, I think even his mom, be treated a certain way because they were darker complected. And so he wanted to do a book, but he also has a documentary because I watched it on I believe, some years ago. And he wanted to dedicate something to his sister and his mother and his family to give encouragement and uplift those that he felt like were not being perceived as beautiful, or being ignored just because of skin complexion. And I'll tell you this much, it was really interesting to see the dynamic of what people's own families was saying and doing to them. When I thought about colorism, or normally I would think it comes from people that are not Black, but it's interesting to see how much is coming actually from within our community. And so that kind of saddens me, that people are mistreated or certain things are said to people because of the color of their skin. But it was a very interesting read, and it is various women that's just, some are giving tips, some are, saying, what has helped them, and others were loved so well by their mom and dad and family that it's not something that's ever even fazed them. And they haven't had any issues. So yes, it's a beautiful book with beautiful stories from Black women. At the end here, let me see. Let me give you guys a quote, like I like to do. One that I liked, that Mickey Taylor, I think she was working at Essence at the time. She gave this quote of, "If power is the ability to have your say over your life, then be determined to speak volumes. This is your fascinating journey. Define it, own it, without limitations." Mickey Taylor. Now this I did not know. I guess Ayana Gregory is the daughter of Dick Gregory. Now, I don't know her, I guess. I don't know. And then this one, I had no idea that Crystal R. Fox was Nina Simone's niece. Now, if you know her, she played on the movie, Tyler Perry's movie on Falling from Grace, I think, or something with Grace on Netflix. But I remember her as a kid playing on In the Heat of the Night. She was a police officer. And so this is a beautiful picture of her. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. She says here, "The strangest part of not knowing my own beauty from birth is the fact that the beautiful Black Nina Simone was my aunt. With all of her pride as a dark girl, it did not register that it applied to me too. I wish I had spent more time with her and soaked up more of her darkness into my skin emotionally. Who could have asked for a better teacher about darkness and entertainment than Nina Simone?" I had no idea she was Nina Simone. But she's a beautiful woman, and I've always thought she was beautiful. And the interesting thing is, too, is that I guess in my family, we have an array of colors. My grandmother has like 5 kids, and there's light to dark. It's not something I've ever really thought about as far as taking place in families, but there are some things people shared here that took place in their own families. At the end here, it says The Impact of Colorism on Society by Dr. Tanika Jackson. She says, although Alice Walker coined the term colorism in 1982, its origins date back to the days of slavery. It refers to discrimination based on one's skin tone. Certain privileges were afforded to individuals who possessed lighter skin. For example, slaves who had dark complexions typically worked in the fields picking cotton, while their fairer-skinned counterparts worked inside the house. And talked about here how Spike Lee had a movie that kind of discussed this in school days, and how in other countries such as Asia, Latin America, and India, light skin was linked to higher class status. If you were a member of the bourgeoisie, you did not have to work outside in the sun, and you were deemed more desirable. And then it just talked about how it even impacts unemployment, prison time, the skin bleaching industry, and it just goes on and on. So it's interesting. This is an older book, but it's still a topic of discussion that is interesting, and I guess needs to continue to be had, because no one should be impacted economically just because of their skin, which now I think about it, yeah, it's still happening. As a Black person, we know this. Anyway, this is a great read if you just want to support, educate yourself, open your mind. If you're not aware, as a Black person, I think a lot of us are aware, but then again, there may be some that are not aware. And I think one story I thought about on here, or a woman told about, was her grandmother intentionally choosing lighter skinned men so her children would not come out as dark as she was, and how her grandmother got really upset when her lighter skinned daughter married a Black man that was darker, because she had tried to set her life up differently by making sure she herself had got with someone that was light and bright, and her daughter did the opposite. So yeah, it's interesting how deeply embedded, and this was this young woman's grandmother. So yeah. But yes, pick up the book. So I hope you guys have an amazing day. I'm gonna look for something else to get into and read this weekend. Take care. I wish you guys nothing but inner peace, positivity, and empowerment. Bye.